Thanks for the introduction. Hey everyone. Hey, yeah. It's good to be here, and so nice to see so many people here. If we would be in Finland, probably half of you would be my siblings, and that would be funny if it wasn't true. So I found out by accident, obviously, that I am donor conceived. I bought a couple of those commercial DNA tests for my wife and I for Christmas to check our ethnic background as a joke. And yeah, I thought it was quite funny to be 1% Inuit. But how little did I know, my parents had left this minor detail to go unmentioned when we were having the talk about the birds and the bees, that there actually was no bee, but there was a gynecologist with a syringe. So I guess my parents didn't have that Portuguese storybook at hand back then. So I was born in 1979, so as a caveat, of course, it was very different back then. It was not, the law was different and all that. But so in the very beginning when I found out, it was a bit like an adventure. Me and my brother Juuso, whom I found through the test, after a big surprise. 2 guys, 1 mission, mano a mano, on a quest to find the biological father. And soon it was 3 brothers and 1 sister, then 4. In a bit it was 10 siblings, then 20, 30, and currently we are about 50 siblings and counting. Soon closer to 100 than those 0 siblings that I thought I had previously. So we're kind of those, if you know, opossums were released into the wild in New Zealand, and they keep multiplying uncontrollably. I get about 10 siblings per year. Even the gynecologist he was confused. I think he probably dozed off, not only in the ethics class when in medical school, but also he probably took a nap on some other classes as well, because when he was confronted with the fact that we're 50, he said, "Oh, how can there be so many?" So I thought, out of all people, a gynecologist should probably know how babies are made. But yeah, it's funny. Well, anyways, I'm like the child at work here. I guess you all are the adults here. So, but no one knows how many we're eventually. So we'll have to see about that, and we'll have to see when maybe an old friend or an ex-girlfriend pops up as my sister. I sincerely hope it would be one of the nicer ones. So my parents, they were not too happy when I found the skeleton in our family closet. Of course, I had no idea that I myself was the skeleton in the closet. It was when I was a kid, I was playing in a rock band, and my parents really would rather not have me pursue that any further, let alone in public. So here we are at an international conference talking about this. So as kids, we never do really what our parents really want us to do, biological or not. But so the thing here is that I was forced to live in someone else's dream in a fantasy. I guess you spoke a bit about that just in your talk, Anna, so thank you for that. So what I felt was, when you mentioned family dynamics, so I felt that something just wasn't right, but I never could quite put my finger on it. And I had no idea that I had been denied to know my whole truth. There was something where I think there should have been nothing, and I could feel it. I think some psychologists call it an unthought known. So what I didn't realize, that I was living with a kind of an unthought known. I knew something was wrong, but was just not able to think it out loud. It is pretty much the same as if you would be searching for a word in your mind, like, oh, what was that word again? But in my case, it was kind of in a language that I had no idea even existed, and of course, I couldn't find it. My parents, as is very common in donor-conceived families, they were scared of my possible identity crisis if I were to know about, or how my biological background would affect my relationship with them. This is a very prime example how lovely it is when somebody else decides what you can and cannot take, and I doubt that kind of any relationship that is based on a lie is better with someone. So it is definitely nice. And it is definitely nice if one doesn't know one's biological origins, but it is absolutely catastrophic if one is getting denied of getting to know oneself. And I think that is precisely what it means when kids are not told about their donor-conceived background. In some conversations that I am having around this topic, it seems it's like almost a bit of a dichotomy that when you make kids, you get kids as a result, despite it being quite obvious. Us kids having our own lives often seems to be a total surprise byproduct, and it's the kind of the fertility treatments and the legacy of the treatments, it lives in ourselves and in our kids and their bodies and not in our parents, despite, of course, spending 9 months in my mom's womb. So I would take that quite seriously when messing around in a clinic with a syringe. And maybe one question that came to mind as I walked in here today was if it sometimes feels that it's more about having success with embryos and not so much as what kind of humanity gets created in the process with us kids. So the biology is important, but like you already said, no one is looking for a father or a mother. Those, in my opinion, and also shared by my 50 siblings, are social relationships. They're built from much more than mere cells that happen to have the same double helix DNA going around in them. I already had a father when I found out. I was 39 years old. Of course, he was not perfect. No one is. And when I met my donor eventually, of course, he was not perfect. He was a bit surprised, though. But yeah, I have 4 kids, so parenting, I'm allowed to have a bit of a say. I think, in my opinion, it's a choice between love or fear, and it's never hard to see which one would feed on trust and honesty, even in difficult matters. But I think the happy thing for me has been the sibling part of things, and they have become very important to me. Some of them are as close as I can imagine, real sibling, as people like to say. Of course, I can't really tell the difference between a donor sibling and a real sibling. But I can say for sure that my relationships with my siblings are different than other friendships. We share a companionship along with our DNA and a bond which is impossible for me to describe. I can only say that it is different from all my other relationships. And I can also say with 100% certainty that the fantasy that I was forced to live in, without knowing the truth about my own life, it hit me way harder than any genetical background. Especially given the fact that my parents had this information all along. They hadn't told anyone, even their own parents. So it obliterated my trust. Even the gynecologist, as has been unfortunately common, had told them to keep it secret. That guy made me, so I'm not allowed to call him names, I think, but we can leave it at that. But it really felt like falling through myself when I got the information and realized that I had been lied to. But eventually I've luckily been able to forgive and feel absolutely blessed that it was possible to forgive my parents. I was lucky to be in therapy at the moment, as I found out, so of course that was very helpful. I take forgiveness quite seriously, and I see it that the one needs to walk in the shoes of the other to be truly able to forgive and take part of the responsibility, share the burden, and walk alongside. And it took me some years to get there with my parents. Luckily, they're now. My father passed very soon that I found out, so we were never able to really discuss the matter with him. But unfortunately, trust and forgiveness, they don't walk hand in hand. And I can tell you that it's much easier to forgive than to try and build the trust back. But hopefully, Julie, I can get there. So I've been stumbling upon this question quite often, that if I'm not happy to exist, especially speaking about this in public, and everybody's thinking that it's somehow shameful for my family and such to be out with the topic. Well, I'm pretty sure that I contemplate my existence a bit more than people usually do, because I know too well how I came to be. So I usually quote Vonnegut, the philosopher. He said so well that he said, "I was some of the mud that got to sit up and look around. Lucky me, lucky mud. Think of all the mud that didn't even get to sit up and look around." So I guess with me, the only major difference with the mud I'm from is that I got frozen and then defrosted once more than most of us. But yeah, I think if we all just realize what a coincidence it is for to exist at all, the complaints kind of stop short. But anyways, so we all yearn to be complete and to be whole, as if there was such state. But what does it make if one is denied being whole to begin with? What does it do to the relationships that this person has? If the person has a side he or she doesn't know even exists, a side that is based on a fantasy, all the relationships a person has are bound to be a bit unwholesome then. It was scary to look myself in the mirror and think, oh, who is that guy, or who is half of me? My wife was confused. She had not only my crisis to witness, but also she had to deal with her own. Her husband had never been exactly who we both had thought he was. Of course, I was the same person, but in a sense, there was a part of me was a total fantasy. She chose to conceive 4 kids with me. And I was looking at my kids whom had suddenly overnight started to have features from someone I didn't even know. My kids would look at some of my siblings who I'd known for like 2 seconds. And that was a bit scary for a time. I'm used to it now. But in all these relationships, then it made me think, how about the most important relationship one person could have, and which is the relationship with oneself. If that is based on a partial fantasy, where does it leave the person, being donor conceived or not? So, yeah, no one seemed in this process to understand that it extends to my kids as well, that it has an impact on how they see themselves. It's kind of, there are the parents, and the parents have a problem of conceiving, they get help, and kids are born, but that's that. It's never really, the thought process really goes only so far, but then I have my life, then my kids have their life, it just goes on, and it becomes, it's a part of everyone's identity, and everybody, if I don't know, my kids wouldn't know, their kids wouldn't know, so it just goes on. It's paradoxical that it's almost funny that when wanting to have children through these treatments, the people involved in the process rarely actually think about the children, and it's weird. So I recommend leaving people with their lives as true, as whole as possible, and only such a life can truly be lived as a wholesome life. And unfortunately, we all tend to forget sometimes what a privilege it is to be alive at all, and that one day we need to give this all away, so we're the lucky mud here. Let's congratulate ourselves. I can finish off, I wrote this poem after having one of my brothers who, again, didn't know his background. As in every tale of humankind, something can come out of nothing, so know you're nothing, and you know you're everything. Thank you, everyone.